Americans for the Arts giving us this agency to be able to go into our congressional offices and the tools to sit down and talk one-on-one with our representatives, our senators, their staff. Americans for the Arts really makes it easy for us to be able to do that, and I so appreciate that.
Last May, I came here to advocate for funding, and the funding was actually approved, and I'm very proud because I've never done anything like that before, going and asking for funding and asking on such a high level, and I'm back here again this year and hopefully can get even more funding than we did last year.
One of the great things that came out of last year was, understanding that Missoula needed a cultural plan. It's something that we don't have in place. We have a lot of nonprofits that are doing incredible work, but we need to take time inventorying our assets and our resources. And that's something that I really solidified at last year's fly-in session. So that was sort of an indirect result. We weren't talking about cultural plans here, but it was in my conversations with other executive directors and arts leadership that made me realize that is our job, is to review the resources that we have within a community and making sure that we're using them the most efficiently as possible.
Being here before really gave me a lot of insight into how effective advocacy can happen here at the federal level with the great work being done by Americans for the Arts. Such an important model for what happens when we come together, when we find the things that we share, and even when we respect our differences, looking for those moments of working on common causes that are going to lift all of us in all of our communities.
I think of Americans for the Arts as one of the most impactful advocacy voices on the Hill, for arts and humanities and our cultural life in general.
My biggest goal for today is to educate our elected officials on some of the critical and transformative work that the arts are doing, not only across the country, but right there in their own backyards, in their districts, not only for veterans, art therapy, and for therapy for all individuals, but also arts as we prepare to welcome global events like the World Cup in Kansas City in 2026. We're here to talk about what we can do to make sure that the arts have their best foot forward for that incredible experience, and what maybe our federal elected officials can do to help us get prepared.
For me, advocating for the arts is an essential part of being an artist. I think it's sort of ingrained in us as performers to make sure we're heard and we're known and we're seen. And I like participating in AFTA events because they help us to know when the exact right time is to show up on Capitol Hill and make sure our elected officials understand the needs happening back in their district in Delaware. And so I'm happy to sort of bring the perspectives of the arts community in Delaware here to DC.
My advice is that whether you're in DC or you're back in Northwest Arkansas in your hometown, that you understand and utilize the power of convening. So for me, this fly-in was, of course, about advocacy and spreading the word about the importance of the arts and supporting the arts, but it was equally about connecting with other arts advocates and other leaders who care so much about developing and supporting the arts.
Advocating for the arts is so important because the arts impact us all. And so it's incumbent on all of us to tell our elected officials, those decision makers, that if this is something that's important to us, important to our society, important for the success of who we are as Americans, we have to advocate to those decision makers to make sure that they understand it's important and that the funding that's needed to sustain these industries and this sector is appropriated.